Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Moses. I'm an environment artist, and as this 1 minute preview is playing, I just kind of wanted to introduce, the structure and the flow of this tutorial for you guys. This is a tutorial, but it's mainly structured as a breakdown, which means I'm just gonna break down the steps I did, break shit down, like my mindset and all that. I don't want you guys to copy shit, parameter for parameter, number for number, polygon placement for polygon placement. No, I don't want you guys to do that, because I feel like that's not really how you learn. You need to understand what I'm doing and why I do them, so you can apply them where they make sense in your own workflow. Yeah, also don't worry if this is going too fast. There's going to be a written tutorial in the description following the same exact video, so you can go at your own pace if this is a little too quick for you. So I'll see you guys in the first part, which is going to be breaking down the process of making the base mesh and talking about some other stuff regarding environment art. This is basically going to be the foundation of what we sculpt inside of ZBrush. And don't worry, this tutorial is not going to be a time lapse the entire way through. I feel like this portion is not really that, interesting, and a lot of us have this, modeling small details like this already, like, in the bag. Like, I don't really want to waste time on this. But and also this tutorial, like making a prop for games, man, you hop through so many programs. There's so many processes you have to take this stuff through. And if I kept this in real time, this tutorial will be like a year long, man. And I really just don't want to keep it that long. Honestly, like, I don't even want 30 minutes is the absolute maximum I would ever make a tutorial. And even then, that is way too long. I want to keep it like 15-20 minutes at most. But it's kind of hard to do that. Yeah, and this is my first time making tutorials like this, so hopefully you guys enjoy all of this, and it reaches your expectations when your expectation that drove you to click this video. I don't know, that was a fucked up sentence. Anyway, yeah, so I'm just going to talk over most of this. It's really hard to work and talk at the same time. I don't know how some people do it. It is nearly impossible for me to do that. I just want to provide as much value to you guys. I know a lot of you already know how to do, some of this stuff, but are kind of struggling with, certain parts of the process. Like, maybe you're really good at modeling, but you're not that great at sculpting, or maybe you're fucking phenomenal at sculpting, but not that great of, extracting, using all the information in your sculpt to texture. And I just kind of want to break my mindset of how I approach all of this for you guys to understand a little bit better. With that being said, we're gonna move on to the second part, sculpting in ZBrush, very soon, but I just wanted to throw this in here right quick. Really, I just want to provide as much value to you guys as possible. 2019 is gonna be a very interesting year. I kind of want to save some of you guys some of the headache of having to figure shit out on your own all the time. And yeah, also I went to school for game art. I mean, actually my degree is in animation, but I went to school for game art. Kind of, like, I focused it in my work, and my portfolio is strictly game art. And man, if you're thinking about going to school for art, I'm gonna tell you my opinion right now, it's a waste of fucking money, because you're gonna spend thousands of dollars in school and you're gonna have to pay all that shit back. You need to be confident enough that your schooling is gonna be able to help you get the job that you want in the end. And as I started to learn more on my own, like on Polycount, on YouTube, on ArtStation, I realized my school really isn't teaching me everything I needed to know. And I'm not gonna categorize myself with everyone else, because everyone's different, but a lot of people feel the same. I really just want more people to realize that, man, like, you just gotta put in the work. Like, honestly, the end goal is to get a job, making money, doing what you love, living the life you want to live. There's so much work, so many hours you're gonna have to put in outside of school in order to, achieve all of this, become the artist you want to become, work at the studio you want to work at. And I feel like a lot of us go to school for the fucking degree. That shit is ridiculous to me. I fell into this trap that I needed a degree. I needed a fucking degree, but that's all I saw. I needed a degree, and once I get a degree, I'd get a fucking job and I'll be good. That is not Dude, that is so far from the truth. No one, like in art in particular, no one gives a fuck about what degree you got. Can you do the job? If you can do the job, you'll be good. That's really all that matters. And if I could go back and do it, like, man, this shit is not free, man. I gotta pay thousands of dollars back in student loans. Luckily, I have a job, you know, working in games now that I can do that. But, you know, I dedicated the time outside of school to make sure I like to do this because, you know, I honestly don't know what the fuck else I'd be doing if I wasn't working in games, you know. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's really, you need to figure out what you want out of your life, you know, and how you're gonna get there and really analyze some of this shit, man. It's really all it comes down to. If I could go back and do this shit over again, I probably wouldn't go to school right away. I'd probably hire like some mentors work. I'd go online. I'd go on ArtStation. I'd go on LinkedIn. I'd go on Facebook, and I'd DM as many people working in the industry that has the position that I want to have, and ask them, you know, can you help me? Can you teach me? You know, and if they're like they're too busy, or maybe they'll do it for a price, you know, pay them then. Because it'll be much cheaper to pay them to teach you how to do this shit, because there's some teachers in school that you're gonna learn from if you go to college that have no experience working in games. And there's gonna be so many classes you're gonna have to fucking take that has nothing to do with what you want in the end. You think I want to go to school to work in games and have to fucking take a history class and learn about Christopher Columbus? I don't give a fuck about Christopher Columbus. You think I want to go and learn about the Pythagorean theorem? I don't give a fuck about any of that. Anyway, this shit's starting to get out of hand. I don't know how the fuck I went to showing you guys how to make a shield from Dark Souls. It's a fucking life lessons and shit. But yeah, so that's over with. Yeah, the rest of the tutorial is gonna be you know, me breaking shit down into more detail, because now this is where I feel like a lot of us need to pay attention. Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the second part, sculpting in ZBrush. So I'll see you guys in the next part. Alright guys, so basically what this part is, we're just going to be prepping for the sculpt. And what I mean by prepping, what we're going to be doing is we're just basically going to be, you know, creasing our hard edges and smoothing, you know, the parts of our mesh that need to be smooth, because this is way too low res looking and we need to make it high res. So yeah, I just go in here, you know, add my creases and just, you know, subdivide, and that is basically it. But to, you know, add that extra bit of detail on the, you know, on the prepping part of side of things, I go in and, you know, I would dynamesh some things and also polish them. Like I throw a polish on top, and you can find the polish in the deformation tab. You just, you know, slide that shit to, you know, as much to the right as you want to get the look you need. Some pieces you can even just use the dynamic Q grid in the geometry tab. So I did that for the rectangular piece, and yeah. I even, you know, inflated some pieces because I felt like they were too skinny. Like this piece right here. That is literally it. And for the planks, here's what I did for the planks. So I didn't want to model, you know, the planks in a circular fashion because that would have been a fucking headache. So I just went ahead, kept it, you know, that basic shape, and I split it into polygroups using the sliced rectangle. So what I did here, I literally just, you know, sliced that shit up into plank shapes and then separated half of them, closed the holes so it fills in that gap, and dynameshed. That is all I did. And after the dynamesh, to really pronounce those individual plank pieces, I went ahead and, you know, add a polish. And I also add another clay polish on top of that to really individualize, I don't even know if that's a word, but individualize those planks. Really, that is all it is, prepping the sculpt. You're basically just subdividing shit in order to create that high res base you can sculpt on. Hopefully that was enough information. And like I said before, like, I don't want you guys to go in and be like, oh, he didn't tell me exactly what he did. No, like, I'm trying to explain, you know, the process of what you do in order to get something to all right, I'm just really trying to explain the process into taking things, you know, step by step. It's not about you know, copying me exactly. It's about, you know, understanding how to take your mesh into the next step. Anyway, so that's really all that we have for that's really all it is for prepping the sculpt. And now we're gonna move on to the next part, which is sculpting. I don't know what the fuck that was, but that was my movie voice. I am not Russian. Alright, let me stop messing around. Let's go on to the next part, guys. Let's go. Follow me. Yo guys, so we're finally sculpting. So now that we got our, you know, our base mesh out the way and we prepped it for sculpting now, here's where the fun starts. I don't really have too much to say on this section. It's mainly you guys just watching, you know, how I, you know, distribute my details and all that. But what I am going to tell you guys, when you're sculpting, you want to be very careful with distorting, you know, the mesh that we prepped too much, because we're going to use our base mesh that we made in Maya to, you know, basically drive the high poly details when we need to texture. So in order to eliminate the time spent, you know, retopping and making a low res mesh, we want to use as many parts of our of our base mesh in order to do that. So yeah, the more you distort your mesh with your sculpting, you're gonna have a hard time baking those details properly. You want to keep that silhouette in, you know, as much as possible. So yeah, I'm really just, you know, beating away at this stuff with the trim dynamic. Sometimes I use the trim smooth border to get those really aggressive metal edge wear, and yeah, and occasionally I'll use the H polish to, you know, polish it up, get some, you know, hard edges in areas where I feel like they're needed. So yeah, and you want to be aware that the details you sculpt are going to drive certain maps inside of Substance Painter that is going to allow you to texture. So the more hard edges you have, those are going to be picked up in the cavity map and the curvature map, and you know, you use those to grab edges and, you know, add more edge wear. And you guys will see when we get into Painter what I'm talking about. But yeah, for the wood, basically for the wood, I go in with the trim dynamic first, and I try and establish personality into the plank so they, you know, kind of differ from each other, so they don't look like the same plank just duplicated. So I go in there and I beat up the edges a little bit here and there. You know, I try and evenly distribute the kind of details that I'm making, so you know, the eye is able to walk around the entire, you know, model properly and appreciate it all. Because if you add too much detail in one spot, the eye is going to be, you know, driven there, and you're going to steal attention. You're going to steal the attention away from, you know, everything else, and we don't want to do that. And for the cracks, I use this custom brush you can find online pretty easily, called the Orbs Cracks brush. And you know, I just add cracks. I really can't tell you, like I really can't tell you guys how to sculpt. Sculpting really comes with practice. You just need to know what kind of details to sculpt. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really tell you how to sculpt. It's something that comes with practice, and eventually you build that muscle memory and you just know, how to sculpt the things. And for the wood fibers, I just really try and vary the widths of the lines so there's variation in them. It's kind of boring when the line is the same width and strength, like in terms of depthness, like all the way through that entire line. So you want to vary that up. And when you sculpt, you don't want to try and like guide it too much, man. You want to kind of freehand it. Like you want to let the crack have like a mind of its own almost. Yeah, that sounds fucking weird, but like, I don't know, it comes with practice. Like, really just comes with practice. I don't know what else to say. So I almost forget to add my bolts. I had to go back and do that. So yeah, I just sculpt my bolts regularly like I've been sculpting the rest of the metal. And I subtract some of them and add indentations in the outer metal piece to kind of indicate that there was something here but it's not there anymore. And yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. So after I finish that, we're gonna get ready to export our high poly in order to bake the details on our low res mesh. So before I do that, I go ahead and apply separate material, just like solid colors to parts of the the mesh, the pieces, to kind of indicate this is going to be a different material here. And this is basically our ID map, so we can easily mask things out inside of Painter. And when you export your high poly, you have to make sure that you name your subtools properly. Because if you don't name them properly, Painter's not going to know what to bake on what. So for our metal high poly pieces, we're going to name them like metal underscore high. And that underscore high is going to be the high poly suffix. And in order for Painter to bake those details onto our low poly piece that corresponds to that, we're going to have to name our low poly metal underscore low. And Painter's going to, analyze those two suffixes and bake them accordingly. So yeah, that's very important. And what we're gonna do, we're going to use the FBX exporter. So we just go into this, you can find that in the Z plugin menu, and then there's FBX export. You want to make sure you have all selected, so ZBrush knows to export all your subtools into that one FBX. So we're gonna move on to the next part, which is I'm going to skip unwrapping. I'm just going to show you guys my UV layout and my low poly, so you can know what details are being baked onto what. Alright guys, so we're getting really close to the end here, and basically, to unwrap and lay out my UVs, what I did was I imported my base mesh, and I just started removing a lot of, the polygons that weren't needed. So, I would merge some vertices together, delete some faces, bridge them together, and basically I just made this very basic because ZBrush, the details that we made in ZBrush are going to be baked on top of these surfaces, so we don't need so many objects to make up our model anymore. And as I'm doing this, I realized I fucked up my silhouette of the, like the outer metal ring, like the outer metal piece too much. So this is why I mentioned earlier, we don't want to mess with our silhouette too much. But since I did, I had to go back into ZBrush and decimate the, that outer metal piece in order to generate my low poly. So I go back into ZBrush, decimate it, bring that back into Maya, and then I use that for, my low poly piece instead of the base meshes piece. and I just start unwrapping it. Like, you know, I separate these into reasonable pieces, and yeah, that's really it. I don't know what else to explain here. Also, remember, we need to keep the same naming convention with the underscore low suffix, so Painter knows to bake the high poly details onto those specific low poly pieces that correspond to the high poly. Hopefully that was not confusing, because it kind of sounds very confusing as I'm saying it, but hopefully you guys understand. Yeah, so we're gonna be moving on to Painter now, finally. Almost the last step, because we're gonna have to go into Marmoset tool bag and light it. So yeah, we're gonna go into Painter now, guys. Alright guys, so now we're gonna bake our high poly details onto our low poly mesh. And first, let me show you guys the wireframe. And see, we don't have nearly as much detail as we did, you know, in our original base mesh or in ZBrush. So yeah, so now we're gonna import our high poly mesh, and we're going to just check normal, ID, ambient occlusion, and curvature, because those are really the only maps that we're really gonna need. And we want to make sure our ID map is set to vertex color, and we want to set our match type to by mesh name. And this is where, you know, us naming our high polys with the suffix underscore high and our low polys with a suffix underscore low was really gonna come in handy, because now Substance Painter knows what details to bake on certain parts of our object. So see, now like it looks just like the high poly, but we have some problems. The first problem, well, we have two problems. One of them, we have very strong jagged edges, and the second one, some of the planks, the details didn't come in all the way. So in order to fix these, we have to go and change some settings in our baking options. So first, to fix the jagged edges, we need to increase the anti-aliasing subsampling, and that shit will take forever to bake, you know, certain maps. Actually, the ambient occlusion is one of them. That shit will take forever. But yeah, that's how you fix the jagged edges. And to fix some of the baking details that didn't come in all the way, like the planks, we have to increase the frontal and rear distance, so Painter knows to analyze a larger radius around the, you know, the low poly in order to grab those missing details. So now you see, here's our maps. We have all of our maps, our normal, our ID, our ambient occlusion, and our curvature. So now we're actually gonna start texturing now, guys. Let's get it. Alright guys, so first I just wanted to apologize. I wasn't able to texture this in real time and like commentate as I'm working, because that shit would have increased this video by like 2 hours easy. And you know, that's just ridiculous. So I'm just going to time lapse this, and I'm going to include the project files in the description for you guys. So you're going to go in there and, you know, look at stuff, you know, take things apart and get a, you know, a better understanding of what I did. So yeah, honestly, when I texture, I just abused the generators. Honestly, I fucking abused the shit out of them. I really don't paint often in Painter, and if I do paint, it's mainly just to paint away some of the masks, because they give too much detail sometimes. So yeah, yeah, and you know, my thing when I texture, I usually have 3 layers of you know, coating, I guess, can I say that? 3 layers of coating, I guess, whatever, fuck it. I coat my textures, well, I coat shit in 3 layers, I'm gonna say that. So I have my base color, for example, my wood. Let's say my wood is brown, right? I have some brown wood, and then the second layer will be a darker tint of that brown, and then I would generate a mask using the generators to have like some surface variation of that brown. So it's dipping from like light brown to a little darker brown, you know, all over. And then I'd go in and add like some edge wear, so now we have some highlights. So yeah, those are basically my 3 layers of fucking texturing, I guess. Yeah, so I mainly do that with everything. Like the paint, for example, the paint has 3 fucking coatings. It has like the base, you know, the basic color. For example, let's take the red. It has the basic red layer, and then it has a darker version of that red, and then it has a lighter version of it as well. And that's just, you know, driven by the generators to distribute in the way I feel makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say, man. Like, I really wish I was able to go in there and like, it's just too fucking long. Like the video would be way too long, and I make mistakes, so it's like the video be fucking extra long. Me talking, making mistakes, like I'd rather just give you guys the project files and you guys just dissect it. Okay, so I'm just gonna let the rest of this play, and then we're gonna move on to Marmoset tool bag, and then we're gonna light the scene. Yo guys, we made it. Lighting. So yeah, basically I really don't have much to say on this either. All I'm going to say is though, like my light, like when I light a prop, I try and bring out, you know, as much detail as possible. You know, I want everything to be appreciated. So first thing I do, well, this scene is mainly just straight up point lights. Like it really is only point lights, and I use the skylight for, you know, some fill lighting. But yeah, I would suggest trying to have some kind of shadows in your lighting, because it just makes things look more interesting when you have shadows in there. So yeah, and you know, I just make shit look good. That's really it. I just try and make shit look good. You know, I add lights here and there to kind of capture some points. You know, add highlights to parts of the mesh to just, you know, make it stand out a little bit more. Yeah, that's really it. There's no, you know, fucking one way of lighting. You just throw lights in there and adjust shit until you have something that you know, you're proud of. And I would suggest adjusting the light width, because the light width really makes a huge difference on, you know, how the shadows sit on your mesh, and it just, you know, gives it a completely different look. I also go into the rendered section, and I just fuck with a lot of the parameters like global illumination, ambient occlusion, and yeah, I just tweak the parameters so I get something that looks right. Like Marmoset is very, you know, artist friendly. It's not very technical at all. You just, you know, mess with stuff until, you know, you get something. And yeah, I also go into the camera tab, and I mess with a lot of stuff on there too, like, you know, the sharpness, the bloom, the grain, the contrast. I even mess with the curves. You know, there's really not one way. You just, honestly, you go in there and you mess with stuff. You know, that's probably very disappointing information for you guys to hear. Damn, like, that's what I do. Like, straight up, that's literally what I do. I just go in there and just mess with stuff. Yeah, I want to do a lot of this kind of stuff for 2019. Get a lot of stuff out there for you guys. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I don't know when the fuck that's gonna be, but I gotta find something to make. Alright, well, anyway, bye guys. Thanks for watching.